This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause, and MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Gleeman is in studio. Don't forget, we expect a phone call from the Wolves president of basketball operations, Tim Conley, sometime after the Wolves plane lands back from the greater Los Angeles area, probably between 4:45 and 5. And then in the 5 o'clock hour, Sam Mitchell should join us. We've added Russo Radio to the mix from the press box, you say. Not even the Fallness studios, because it'll be that close to game time.
Puck drop.
Yeah. Well, it's not that hard to get from the catacombs of the Fallness studios.
Well, that elevator, it can get a little dicey before the game.
I guess it could. And then we're out about 6:15 today, right? 6:10, 6:15, right?
6:09, probably.
6:09. Oh, nice. First time in a while we've gotten out early. Gleeman, should we apologize to the Twins? Have we seen enough progress on the field to say all is not lost, notwithstanding, I think, we need a victory today to end up with a split of the 4-game series with Cleveland. What do we think of the current condition of your favorite club?
A 4-game series is funny because they win the first one. Okay, good. Score 11 runs.
Yes.
They lose the next two, and now they're stuck in limbo here. They've either lost 3 in a row, in which case the sky is once again falling,
yeah.
Or, like you just said, they've split on the road against a good team, which, good outcome.
Okay, right.
So, yeah, these this rain delay in the last, 2 innings of this game are very important. But I think for the most part, their pitching has gotten fully on track, and it's, all the preseason projections and stuff that had both the rotation and the bullpen as, among the best in the American League. I think we're seeing that lately, but the problem is they just don't hit. And, you saw the 11 runs in the first game of the Cleveland series, and you go, okay, maybe this is actually happening. And they'd put together some runs against the Angels in the homestand, but they have 2 runs today as of the rain delay. There's just so many games. It's not even all or nothing, but it's like they've had a few big innings here and a couple big games, but for the most part, it's 0, 1, 2, sometimes 3 runs. And, what happens is, and we just saw it when they got walked off last game in Tuesday night in Cleveland, it's 1-1 in the ninth. Your pitching has done an incredible job at that point. Your hitting has done a terrible job, and then Varland gives up the walk-off, and it's like, the reliever gave up the walk-off. Well, they allowed 2 runs in 9 innings in the road. That's a great outcome for the pitching, and there's been so much of that kind of wasted performances because the starting staff was really slow out of the gates and has largely turned things around, and now they're healthy. Lopez is back. And the bullpen has been a little shakier than I think the overall numbers would suggest. Some blow-ups in big spots like from Griffin Jacks earlier and stuff, but for the most part, this is a very good deep pitching staff, and it's healthy now. But they just have had no level of offensive consistency. And, the 2 hitters they picked up, kind of, low-cost, scrap heap type of guys, Harrison Bader's been great for them, defensively, but also offensively. Ty France, who has 3 hits today, has been very solid for them for a $1 million pickup, which is basically the minimum salary. It's the core guys who were held over from the struggles at the end of last year, and the Twins made a decision to not break up the core and not try to trade, some of these 25 to 29-year-old guys who would come up through the system. And we've seen, Miranda struggled and got demoted. We've seen Julian be up and down. We've seen Larnach be up and down. Now Wallner's hurt. Royce Lewis hasn't come back, but he's getting pretty close. Like the core guys have been their biggest problem. That, the kind of, low cost marginal pieces that they brought in have actually done a pretty decent job. It's just, Correa's hitting 220, and, they haven't got much production out of the leadoff spot post Wallner. And then, just the 6 through 9 on the lineup, it's guys that people don't even know. I mean, these are quad A guys, a lot of it. So it's just been such a struggle offensively that I think it takes a little bit away from how solid the pitching has been.
Every time we have you on, I think at least half the questions, maybe even closer to 75%, are ownership related.
Yes.
You know how this is.
Yeah.
People have made their decision on this ownership group, and they are looking for a ray of hope. They're looking for some light here that indicates, hey, a name is starting to bubble up that we haven't heard before, that has the money, that might have the inside track to this thing. Or is this going to be the slow play of the century?
I mean, there's been some rumbling, but I would say post Justin Ishbia stepping aside, which is now a couple months at least,
right?
In the past, I don't get the sense, and this isn't my area of expertise. Dan Hayes and Ken Rosenthal for The Athletic have done a lot of reporting on this, but my sense is that there's nothing imminent, and it feels like, just talking to some people with the Twins, that there's, I don't want to say pessimism, but there's a sense of, basically what you're asking, which is like, is this thing going to actually, are we moving towards something even at this point? And I don't get the sense that that's the case. And we're already, deep enough into the season now that the idea of some new owner coming in and, boosting the payroll for a trade deadline pickup or something like that, even if they put themselves in a spot where they're going to be adding at the deadline, I think that probably ship has sailed. Now you're thinking it's more of a fan morale boost this season, heading into the offseason maybe with a new ownership. But I don't get the sense that there's a ton of, optimism that this thing is progressing in a way, or that they've zeroed in even on one group again or something like that. That's not to say they won't be sold eventually, but you start to hear rumblings of like, well, one possibility is they could pull it off the market for a while, wait for some things with the CBA, put it back on the market. Or another rumbling is like, well, what if, a certain segment of the Pohlad family tried to kind of buy out the other segment and bring in some other investors so they could still remain in charge? And my feeling, and I think the evidence, and I've said this to Twins officials and they don't like hearing this, but the evidence, like you said, with every time you open the phones or the emails or something, and whenever I do a mailbag, it's all the same. I really feel like, from a morale standpoint, short of them, going on some great playoff run, because winning cures everything, nothing is going to change about how Twins fans feel about this organization. Not even the team on the field, but the organization. Yeah. If the Pohlads are still, at the top of the chart for running things. And I don't get the sense that the Twins quite understand that. I wrote about the attendance, and it's gone down even further since then. They're basically, of teams playing in their own major league ballpark, which eliminates the A's and the Rays, who are playing on minor league side. The only teams with worse attendance are the Chicago White Sox, who might literally be the worst team of all time, and the Miami Marlins, who have been, low attendance, low fan base forever.
We know it's not good baseball.
That's not a good sign at all. Grant, in your hand time?
Dan, BigDeck.com. I want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The keyword for the 4 o'clock hour is green. Go to KFAN.com and enter.
You know that feeling when you're about to score 30% off, but they want your number? Ugh. Give them your Line 2 number instead. It's a second line on your phone, perfect for nabbing promo codes without inviting spam to your party. Sign up for every discount under the sun, then block the junk texts that follow. You get all the perks, but none of the spammy baggage. More codes, less chaos. Visit line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in the App Store and get your shopping sidekick today. Because the only thing blowing up your phone should be good deals.
The keyword green.
Gleeman is with us in studio. We expect a visit from Tim Conley sometime between 4:30 and, probably closer to 4:45 and 5:15. And then Sam Mitchell is going to join us sometime a little bit later in the show. Russo will join from the X. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for the Minnesota Wild? They have to win tonight. They are down 3-2 to the Vegas Golden Knights. They have had great difficulty getting out of the first round. They haven't gotten out of the first round in about 10 years.
Very Twins-like prior to 2 years ago. Yeah.
Well, very Wolves-like for a while,
That's
right?
true,
Back in the one-and-done days with Flip.
Oh, there were over a decade I would have killed to get eliminated in the first round.
That's exactly it. Remember that? Yeah. That's also true. Any thoughts about tonight's Game 6?
I never played hockey. I don't know anything.
You're one of us,
Don.
You've never really...
No, I've never laced up a pair of skates in my entire life.
Okay.
I've lived here for 42 years. But I've tried to get into it because of Russo, being a teammate of Russo at the Athletic.
Of course.
And Joe Smith, too, who does a good job. And I've watched like a few of these games or like periods of a few of these games. And this is going to sound very stupid. I don't know how anybody knows that a puck goes in the net at this point. And when I was a kid, they had the glowing puck.
Yes, they tried that for a while. Yes.
And I'm sitting here as a 42-year-old.
The glowing
and I'm
puck,
saying,
bring it back?
Bring it back. Because all I listen to is for the announcer to get excited, which is actually kind of how I watch soccer too sometimes, where like I zone out and then I tune in when the announcer's octave goes up a little bit.
Didn't they there was a glowing puck. Then there was a puck where they like put a tail on it even. There was
I need that.
Something added to that, and then it was viewed, I think, by the hockey community as too gimmicky.
Right. They went away from it.
That's true.
They need like a alternate broadcast, which is big now. Like ESPN will have
big
for like morons. Just like guys who they want to get into hockey, but they don't know anything. And there's like a guy just pointing to the puck at all times.
No,
like,
maybe that's the answer. Maybe that is the answer.
So no, to answer your question, I have
you got nothing. You got nothing to add to the equation tonight or the discussion.
You think I want hockey fans taking the anger they have towards you and pointing it towards me? No,
you got enough of that.
I'll give you one tip for this series, Gleeman. If it's overtime, just look for the puck in the back of the Wild's net.
Wow, that's uncalled. That's awfully negative.
Well, I feel like I got to stand up for the show a little bit today because you went Luca on the whole thing, and we had a nice program planned out. Now we're involving a lot of different things, and I love having Russo.
That's the thing.
This isn't against Russo,
so I don't think we ever have to have an excuse. And we'll keep it brief. We'll get in, we'll get out very
we have a hard out time
quickly. Peanut butter and jelly, Abbott and Costello, Siskel and Ebert, Gleeman and the Geek. How can you have Gleeman in studio without the Geek? We could, I guess, one of these times do that. I just assumed he's got better things to do, and then you both have. Yeah. That's doubtful.
No, I mean he does like 3-4 shows a week with me, so there's your answer there.
Yeah, maybe he would be. He's sick of you too. Maybe he would say, "I don't want to be on."
I'm certain of that.
I mean, Hall and Oates did separate tours.
They did.
That's true.
We've had them both on individually.
We've had them both individually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's a special event when we come together, says the person who recorded an hour and 20-minute show about the Wolves with him this morning.
So is that the first time you have done that, ventured out to talk hoops with him?
We did one after Game 4, like a 25-minute, just like, let's talk about it.
Right.
And people, to my shock, people were like, hey, this was fun, you guys. And I'm like, really? And so we did like an actual hour-long show about the series in Game 5. I haven't looked yet at the comments. Maybe they've turned on us already. This was too much.
Right. Bonus goes to a lot of Wolves games.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw him at Game 4, I think.
People always think I'm joking, but like I like basketball better than baseball. I always have for 40 years. Like, it just so happens I write and cover baseball, but like I think I've watched at least like half of every Western Conference playoff game this year. And so if all it requires is just pretending you know about basketball, I've been preparing for that moment for like 35 years. I can do that. I can talk for an hour about basketball as evidence of this conversation.
Yeah, of course. There's no question about that.
You can fake it. If you listen to enough people over the years who know what they're talking about, you can just mimic basically what they're doing, which is what I try to do.
I think you have your own thoughts about the team, too. Let's go back to a little bit about the Twins. This season, even before the season began, the people nationally put together the list the obligatory list. Okay, who might be on the hot among managers, might be on the hot seat. And Rocco's name, especially when they started slowly, was an obvious one that came up. But what do you sense behind the scenes? Because let's say they fall off the end of the table again. Do you believe, I'm not asking whether you think he should be in any trouble, but do you get any sense organizationally that he really could be vulnerable a little bit? How do you think the organization views Rocco right now?
I think, first of all, it's not in their demeanor. I'm talking about Derek Falvey, front office, and even on the ownership side, the poll ads. I mean, I think the last time they fired a manager in season was Ray Miller, which was like in '86 before when they hired Tom Kelly, obviously. It's not in their demeanor or in their mindset overall to, make those sort of sweeping changes to blow things up like that mid-season. However, I really think heading into the last homestand where they faced two bad teams, White Sox and Angels, 6 games at home.
Just like a year ago, right? Similar circumstances.
Those were the two teams that kind of started the 12-game winning streak right around the same time. I think if they would have gone like 2-4 against the White Sox and the Angels, he would have truly been on the hot seat. And I know baseball's marathon, not a sprint. I'm not saying 6 games are important, but I thought if you're at home
and you don't get yourself going then,
and you can't get right against those teams, and they did. They went 5-1. Then they win the first game in Cleveland, and you start to think, okay, well maybe they're out of the woods a little bit. And then depending on what happens today, I do think, like you said, whether or not I think he's a solid manager. I think there's plenty of evidence of that. I don't think he's near the top of the list of problems with this team, but if you take the last 6 weeks of last season where they finished 12-27. And you take the first now month plus of this season, it's been like 70-something games now.
Almost half a season.
Half of a full season where they've not just played poorly, they've been essentially the second worst team other than the White Sox. And there are some managers who can live through that. I mean, Kelly had some moments like that, but he had so much equity built up with the 2 championships. And even for that matter, Gardenhire lived through, 4 or 5 90-loss seasons out of 6 seasons, but he had a lot of equity. Baldelli has some equity built up from 2023 and 2019, but it's not anywhere near that level. And I just think if you're not sort of a legendary manager or a guy who's, destined to be in the team Hall of Fame necessarily, and you have a 75-game stretch where you play like a 120-loss team, no matter who you are and what the circumstances
it's inevitable almost.
So I do think if they slide further and it's clear they're not progressing at least towards 500, I do think he will be on the hot seat, whether fans think it's deserved or not, whether I think it's deserved or not. But I also think that the ownership situation, like we talked about, being in limbo, we saw they fired the hitting coaches, all 3 of them, at the end of last year. That was their response. And a lot of people felt like that wasn't enough, particularly because they didn't trade any core players like we talked about. But when you're kind of going up the blame hierarchy, you fire coaches, and if that doesn't work, the manager gets fired. I mean, that's just how it goes in baseball. But once the manager gets dismissed in a situation like this, that is the last remaining shield for the front office. And to me, I will always point to the players and the people who acquired the players before I will point to the guy who's doing the lineup card.
Me too.
And so I wonder, because of the uncertainty surrounding the ownership situation, let's say some new billionaire buys him. Is he going to say, I want this front office, or am I going to bring in my own people? And so I wonder, I'm not sure in my mind if I think that helps or hurts Baldelli's cause, but I think it's a factor, because if you fire the manager mid-season and you continue to struggle, and then maybe a new ownership group comes in, there's nothing shielding the front office from that point. And so I think that is definitely a consideration. But regardless of what you think of Baldelli, I really think they need to put together an extended 500 stretch at the very least, just to show that we've stopped the bleeding here, which goes back to last season. I think it would be a lot different if they were just off to a poor start this year, but the memories of how bad the collapse was last season, I think plays a part. And you just can't play like this for half of 80 games basically coming up on and not be on the hot seat.
All right, Aaron Gleeman in studio. We need to stay ahead of the break schedule, but if you have time, we can do one more quickie when we come back, because I have a couple other baseball-related questions. I want to go a little deeper in the attendance stuff that you wrote about via your mailbag and The Athletic. And then, as I mentioned, we hope to chat with Tim Conley and Sam Mitchell a little bit later in the show, not to mention Russo Radio from the X, where the fan has learned the Wild will be hosting Vegas with their playoff lives on the.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause. And MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Dan, when are you going to get KG on the show? That's Eric from Shakopee. Well, our 5 o'clock guest, Sam Mitchell, last time he was on, promised that if indeed the reunion takes place, which we all assume that it will once the ownership change becomes official, that he will not only work overtime to convince KG to come on, he will come into studio with him to make it more likely that KG will do it. So he's not out on an island of his own. So that'd be nice. Because I look back on it, I think I can say this with certainty, because I do sometimes forget people we've had on the show over the decades. I'm almost positive we've never had KG on this program. I'm not even sure. Did he ever appear on a local radio show in this town? I don't think he did.
Outside of like media day stuff,
right. Yeah, right.
Somebody had a picture of a KFAN table at Target Center.
Okay, that would make sense.
Garnett was sitting on the other side, but it was like 30 years ago.
Right.
I mean, it might have been 95, 96 his rookie season, but no, it's been a minute.
Been a long time.
But now he's a podcaster.
He is a big time podcaster that's got to be censored often. We always we get some of his sound guards. He has to go through it like 5 times.
It takes about 3 hours to get a 90-second KG soundbite.
Yeah. You know how you guys were saying Connolly was like blowing on his left hand, preparing to get he's going to get that dump button finger. He's got to get it ready to go.
That's true.
You're going to strain a hand.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I'll have to remind him.
Be like Howard Stern's producer.
Exactly that, for sure. So that's has he responded? Has KG reacted to the wipeout of the Lakers?
I haven't seen. I know that during the series there were a couple of responses because his buddy on the podcast,
I think
Paul
he
Pierce,
picked the Lakers in 4,
basically.
But he's from Inglewood.
Yeah.
He's like,
that's true.
But it was the same stuff. You know, we got Luka and LeBron and blah blah.
Yeah, he went at him. He seemed. I don't know how much of it was the bit, but he seemed to. He being KG seemed to take that pretty personally.
He did.
He was going at. He went hard at Pierce
because he said, and he was right. He goes, Ant's going to have it for these guys, and we saw him. He was, trying to punch LeBron.
Speaking of Ant. I mentioned Mitchell, the conversation I had with him earlier on the phone, and he brought up something that I had noticed, but we hadn't talked about. There's a lot of discussion about there was that sequence where I don't remember which game this was. It was game 3 when Ant just started pushing LeBron, several times. And LeBron's like, "Oh, what's
he was
going on?"
begging the refs to call a foul.
In effect, yeah. There was another moment. I think the next game, I'm not exactly sure when, where they're coming out of a timeout, and LeBron just seems to be trying to carry on a conversation with Ant, and Ant is not saying anything. Almost like, okay, we had our friendly conversations earlier. Bleep that. I'm done with that. You're not gonna butter me up. And Sam and I took it the exact same way, which was again Edwards kind of saying, "Well, I'm not. I know I've respected you and I've said a lot of nice things about you, but I want to take your heart out."
Well, think what he did to Durant, who's like his childhood idol. Right. He loves Kevin Durant is like he had posters on the wall of him. And he was just burying him and talking as much smack during that as I've ever seen anybody do. There's like 8 iconic photos of him like making hand gestures.
Yes.
If that's what he's doing to the guy he grew up idolizing, what is he doing to anyone else?
You are correct. Have the Twins resumed?
They've announced the time to resume.
Oh, is that right?
Which is in about half hour, maybe.
Did you participate in the frustration? There was who was mad at the? It was Lavelle.
2 nights ago.
Lavelle was mad at the weather terrorists, forecasters who he thought needlessly delayed that game when the rain never really materialized. What have you heard about that?
Well, there is no bigger group of complainers than the people who reside in a press box. And I'll put a baseball press box up against any other sport.
Well, you got more time to complain.
Yes, we just sit around. Yeah. And by the way,
between pitches.
I'm saying that as the number one complainer of all time.
I'm with you.
But I don't go on the road. So to me, it's just funny. So to me, I see Dan Hayes and Phil Miller.
They're all like biatching about it.
We've been waiting 3 hours. It's rained for 30 seconds. And I'm like, well, that sucks to be you. Now, if it happened at Target Field, which it has occasionally, then yes, you will hear me complaining nonstop. But that is one of the... it's not a tough job. It's a great job to cover a baseball team, but that is near the top of the list of annoying things. There was one against the White Sox where we were the only people in the ballpark when they finally canceled the game.
Oh, that's right.
Because they have to wait like 75 minutes by rule. Right. And I was looking out, and because everyone else is smart enough to just go home. It's a White Sox Twins game in April. And we're sitting there like, trying to finish the story. Yeah.
Well, in any case, texter, curious for, this is from Jacob. Looks like Jacob in Maple Grove. Curious for Aaron's thoughts on the offseason acquisition position players. They seem like solid ads, but still replacement level guys due to lack of investment. Jake in Maple Grove.
Yeah, I mean, they only really brought in 3 guys, 2 hitters, Bader and France.
But, as you say, they've been actually solid. Pretty good, yeah.
France has been one of their best hitters. Bader has been okay offensively and phenomenal defensively, so he's been one of their best all-around players. You can certainly make the argument, and we talked about this in the offseason, of like, they could have shaken up more. They could have tried to free up some salary with Vasquez or Paddock trades to bring in another bat. I did think that I didn't expect them to be this punchless offensively, but this is how they looked down the stretch last year, and they didn't really add much. And I feel like if Correa is not at an all-star level, the line, and especially once they lost Wallner, who's been one of their best hitters now for like 2.5 years, kind of under the radar a little bit, it's just not that good of a lineup. You just don't have that many fearsome guys, either in terms of slugging or even just kind of on-base percentage-driven guys. It's a lot of kind of marginal guys who 2 years ago looked better than they do now, and some spare parts, and you toss in the Royce Lewis injury that hasn't made anything better. It sounds like he will be back during this upcoming homestand, which starts Tuesday. They have an off day Monday. So that could provide a jolt, although he struggled down the stretch too. It also sounds like Willie Castro.
He's going to use the torpedo bat, huh?
Yeah, I've been interested to see how quickly that became a national story because of the Yankees' success in
basically,
like a 3-game series.
And I think people like saying torpedo bat.
Yes.
That's it.
And how it's really kind of cooled down. I mean, there's multiple guys. Jeffers was using it early in the season. I think Correa even maybe was using it. Lewis has been using it, I think, on his rehab assignment with the Saints, which they got rained out again today. I suspect that, as interesting as it seemed, there's going to be some data at the end of the season, and people are going to look, and it's going to be like,
nothing to see here.
It increased, exit velocity by 0.1% or something. Because, I mean, what are the odds that nobody thought of this for 100 years, and now it's like, oh yeah, now everyone hits home runs. But yeah, it's an innovation, and baseball is not famous for innovating. Baseball is famous to clinging to everything from 100 years ago until it's pried out of their hands. So I do appreciate it.
Speaking of innovation, do we have any early analytics on how well or poorly the Twins are doing getting TV, customers to the new app and so forth?
They don't talk about that. I mean, I've attempted to. They certainly aren't going to tell me because the numbers are not going to be good.
Unless the numbers are great.
No, they aren't. And I mean, it's one of those things where they have no motivation to really talk about it unless they're bragging. Yeah. And I mean, it's for the same reason that the attendance is down, but also just the on-field product has not been very good. I suspect they've probably undershot what were even, relatively pessimistic expectations for that. There were also some growing pains early on with the actual broadcast itself.
Yes, right.
I think they've gotten over that, and I actually think they've added some elements to the broadcast, having like some additional freedom. Sometimes they skip a commercial break. They have some different features. We're seeing all their rain delay coverage.
Yes.
You have the ability to like go live to minor league games and stuff. I think those are pluses. Mm-hmm. I just think if the team's bad and everyone's frustrated with ownership, they didn't really have a great runway for that to take off. But it's a longer term play. But yeah, I have not heard really anything on that. I am 100% certain that no one will tell me anything about that. But my speculation is that it hasn't been great.
Not favorable thus far. Thanks for coming in, as always.
Of course,
we'll chat in a couple of weeks. Aaron Gleeman, of course, you can read him at The Athletic. And give people, again, details on the podcast, or podcasts now.
Yeah, well, we're doing 2 or 3 a week on the Twins and maybe 1 or 2 a week on the Wolves. It's on Patreon, so the website is Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. $8 a month. I think in April we did like 12 episodes, so it's like 60 something cents an episode. Me, John Bonus, we have all the other beat writers on as regular guests. Maybe we'll rope in some Wolves guests, something like that. So patreon.com/Gleeman, Gleeman and the Geek Podcast. Sign up, and if nothing else, it's like group therapy when the Twins go bad.
That's it. Good luck in round 2 for your favorite pro basketball team.
Thank you. We need it.
That's for sure. That is Aaron Gleeman. Don't forget, we're going to hit a little ahead on our break. So hopefully, once the Wolves have landed, in fact, maybe they already have, we will try to reach out to Tim Conley, who said he'd be willing to chat today. A pretty good day for a president of basketball operations to do that. He's not a guy who tends to crow a lot. I'll ask him if he, tried to taunt Rob Pelinka with his own version of the jacket. On many, many other things with him. And Sam Mitchell is confirmed for some time in the 5 o'clock.
Want to keep your personal number private but still stay connected? With Line 2, you can get a second phone line right on your device with a super simple app and no need for another phone. Whether it's for online shopping, dating, or shielding your main number from spam, Line 2 is an easy way to manage it all. Ready for peace of mind without breaking the bank? Call, text, block, and more for only $9.99. Get started with line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in any app store today. Line 2, your second line simplified.